Today we discover a story where a quiet life is shattered by an extraordinary secret. Samuel Washington, a humble hospital worker, loses his beloved wife Lorraine, only to find she's left behind not just memories, but a hidden fortune meant to change the world. Shock turns to courage as Samuel faces elite families, social prejudice, and the pressures surrounding his son's high-stakes wedding. In a breathtaking moment, dignity triumphs over wealth, reshaping relationships and forging an unforgettable legacy. Lorraine's fortune becomes a force for good, sparking a foundation that lifts children and unites communities. Grief gives way to hope as ordinary routines transform into lifelong impact, and one small family's love ripples through an entire city. Subscribe and hit like. Our powerful stories add years to your life. Join our Story Lovers Club and let us know in the comments. Where are you listening from? What if one moment of wild abandon could upend everything you thought you knew about yourself and your family? Rebecca believed she was just lost in the fun of youth, untouchable in her bubble life, devoted church girl by day, dazzling slay queen in glittering red by night. But destiny has a habit of finding us when we least expect it. On the night her freedom felt infinite, she couldn't have imagined the fallout awaiting her. Neon lights painted Rebecca's skin as she danced in a club, laughter swirling among friends and music pulsing through her veins. Her red dress, carefully chosen by her bold best friend Jessica, caught every eye, leaving little room for secrets. Memories blurred. David's hands, flashes of camera phones. Jessica spraying champagne with regal bravado. None of them knew a single viral clip would haunt Rebecca by sunrise. Rebecca barely remembered the taste of the blue shot that spun her mind, or the midnight pictures through smoky haze. But the next morning there was no escape. Her phone trembled with endless notifications. Girl, you're trending. They posted you on Gossip Gum. Check. Panic wrestled with curiosity as Rebecca clicked on the link. She watched, transfixed and horrified, while the video played. Her own laughter, her swirling dance. Jessica's bottle high in the air. David's hand intimate, possessive, too close, too familiar. The comments were merciless and rampant. Church princess living wild. All these hypocrites. Just look at the pastor's daughter now. Rebecca felt her heart sink with each passing view. Her throat tightening, the walls closing in. Anticipation of shame gave way to dread, as the video didn't just ripple across blogs, but landed in the one place she feared most: WhatsApp. The messaging app that linked communities, spread news, and carried judgment faster than lightning. Lessons bloom. It was there, among the Faithful Fathers Fellowship group, her dad's name popping up in silent dread. Pastor James, fresh from visiting the sick and praying for the needy, finally returned home weary but faithful. He unclipped his clerical collar, settled on the old sofa, and opened his phone. The thumbnail was unmistakable. Rebecca, red dress, enmeshed in everything he had sought to keep her safe from. He tapped. He watched. He paused, rewound, watched again. The silence in the room pulsed like a second heartbeat. His daughter, the voice of the choir, the heart of Sunday worship, now dancing dangerously in the midst of temptation. Pastor James didn't shout or rage. He simply folded his hands and whispered, "God, please not my child." Rebecca sensed tension at home, but the confrontation never came. Her father greeted her as usual, discipline carved in stoic calm. Her mother's kiss lingered a second too long, her gaze searching for repentance in Rebecca's eyes. Dinner felt staged, a quiet meal of jollof rice and grilled chicken, disguising the storm roaring beneath polite silence. The air was saturated with questions. Pastor James kept his eyes glued to his Bible, never meeting Rebecca's gaze. Her mother watched her every move, as if trying to puzzle out whether the sweet, faithful daughter she knew had vanished. Every silent moment rang louder than any rebuke. By the third day, the unspoken tension grew unbearable, suffocating Rebecca beneath the shroud of judgment and love. In the plush comfort of a rented Airbnb, Jessica sprawled on the sofa, flipping her wig with practiced flair. "Stop worrying. You won't sing in choir again, right?" she teased. "Girl, your secret is out." Rebecca sighed, guilt twisted inside her. "It's not that simple," she muttered. Jessica smirked. "Too gorgeous for regret, babe. You already broke the rules. Why not enjoy the freedom?" She filled Rebecca's glass with chilled rosé, urging her toward reckless joy. But Rebecca's thoughts clung to consequences and a growing unease about David. Jessica leaned near, voice hushed. "You know David's obsessed. He's threatening other guys now." Rebecca froze as Jessica showed her the message, David's possessive rant, promising to ruin anyone who dared approach her. 30 missed calls from David later, Rebecca's heart beat with a new flavor of fear. Fingers trembling, Rebecca silenced her phone and tried to focus on the warmth of the room, but anxiety clawed at her. Each vibration echoed with David's need for control, whispers laced with threats, hidden behind digital screens. Despite Jessica's bravado, her voice softened. "Becca, do you want me to talk to him?" But Rebecca shook her head, not wanting to seem weak or bring Jessica into the crossfire. Instead, she stared into her untouched wine, feeling both exposed and utterly alone. Outside, the Lagos night throbbed with life, unbothered by her troubles. Within, Rebecca weighed the cost of freedom against the burden of judgment, wondering when the joyful chaos of youth became so complicated. Sunday dawned with golden hues, a day usually sacred for renewal and hope. Rebecca's home pulsed with ritual, her father's sermons humming from the next room, her mother's urgent prayers in the kitchen. The world outside had turned, neighbors whispering, friends sending cryptic messages, elders in the church exchanging meaningful glances. Rebecca stood before her closet, hands trembling over sensible dresses, each reminding her of the double life now exposed. When she finally stepped into the sanctuary, the air brimmed with unspoken questions. She felt every eye grazing over her, measuring her worth, comparing tales and rumors. A choir song rose, a melody of forgiveness. Rebecca, voice wavering, sang with them, hoping each note might mend what the video had torn apart. In the pews, Pastor James delivered his sermon with unshaken conviction, but his eyes darted to Rebecca again and again, thick with concern and pain. He preached about temptation, sin, and forgiveness, subtly weaving in warnings cloaked as parables. The congregation listened, glancing furtively at Rebecca, gossip swirling as thick as incense. Her knees buckled beneath invisible weight. Still, she stood tall, refusing to crumble. After the service, well-meaning aunties offered tight smiles and sidelong advice. "Stay strong, my dear. The devil is always busy." Others weren't so gentle, whispering as Rebecca walked by. She clutched her Bible to her chest, silently praying for the strength to face her mistakes with dignity. Meanwhile, David prowled outside the church, his anger brewing since the scandal broke. He messaged Rebecca, demanding explanations, then apologies, then ultimatums. "If you block me, I'll show them all." His possessiveness was no longer a secret. Jessica remained Rebecca's anchor, texting reassurances and quick-witted comebacks in the group chat. But Rebecca's faith in friendship began to shake. Did Jessica share the video accidentally? Or had she chased clout, their bond traded for fleeting fame? Trust, once solid as stone, now felt fragile. A glass castle perched over stormy seas. That evening, as Rebecca slipped into bed, her mind thrashed between anger at David, disappointment in Jessica, and the choking fear of losing herself. Unable to sleep, Rebecca replayed memories of innocence, hands folded in childhood prayer, her father's strong arm as she sang her first solo, laughter echoing after youth group meetings. She remembered a time before expectations became chains, before secrets threatened everything she loved. Tears slid silently down her cheeks, mourning the girl she once was, and the woman she was becoming. In that darkness, a resolve began to stir. She refused to be defined by a single night, or by the judgments of those who only saw her mistakes. Tomorrow, she vowed, would mark not her shame, but the beginning of her journey to reclaim her story. And for the first time in days, a glimmer of hope sparked in Rebecca's heart. The next morning unleashed new challenges. Rebecca woke to a flood of messages, not just the hateful ones, but also words of encouragement from a few true friends. Among them was Samuel, a childhood companion, whose gentle tone carried no judgment, only support. "You're not alone," he wrote. "We're more than gossip." The message gave Rebecca a fleeting sense of relief, and she clung fiercely to each reminder of kindness. Lessons bloom. Yet, as she prepared to leave for school, the reality of her reputation weighed heavy. Her mother's anxious eyes, her father's cold distance, their home shifting from sanctuary to battleground. Rebecca straightened her shoulders, ready to face the day, determined not to let shame dictate the future. School was no escape. Each hallway buzzed with whispers, laughter, and pointed glances. Rebecca moved through the crowd with practiced composure, pretending not to notice the way her peers stared or the barely concealed smirks. In class, the whispers turned to stifled giggles. Teachers offered forced smiles, dodged questions about the scandal. Jessica, ever flamboyant, acted unfazed, throwing her arms around Rebecca and making a show of confidence. "Let them talk, you're legendary now," she declared. But beneath the show, her own unease crept through. It was as if the air had thickened, everyone waiting for Rebecca to break, to lash out or confess. Refusing to play their game, Rebecca focused instead on her studies, searching for meaning in the pages of old textbooks. During lunch break, Samuel caught up with Rebecca beneath the shade of an ancient mango tree. "You're stronger than you realize," he told her, voice soothing the turbulence within. Mistakes don't define us. They talked about childhood dreams, the plans they made before life grew complicated. For a moment, Rebecca allowed herself to hope, to imagine a future untouched by scandal. Samuel's support reminded her that even in the darkest times, connection could offer healing. Yet, she also wrestled with lingering doubts about Jessica and the night everything went wrong. Was betrayal hiding in plain sight? Or had her best friend been a victim of circumstance too, caught in the crossfire of youth and reckless longing? At home, the storm continued to brew. Rebecca's parents argued quietly in the living room, unsure how to guide their daughter through public disgrace. Her father prayed more fervently than ever, wrestling with anger, disappointment, and sorrow. Her mother tried gentle conversations about forgiveness, about moving forward. Her words weighted with both love and fear. Rebecca felt trapped between conflicting expectations, pulled by her parents' faith, her friends' wildness, and her own uncertain future. The house, once filled with laughter and music, now echoed with silence and regrets. She wandered the halls, longing for comfort she couldn't find, wishing she could run far enough to leave judgment behind. Days blurred into weeks, the fury of the scandal slowly fading yet never forgotten. Rebecca learned to navigate new boundaries, not just with classmates and church members, but within herself. She set limits with David, blocking his number after a final warning. She confronted Jessica, demanding honesty about the leaked video. Tears were shed, apologies exchanged, and forgiveness painstakingly forged, though trust was never quite the same. Gradually, Rebecca realized she possessed a resilience she hadn't known before. The kind forged under pressure and adversity. Wounds from betrayal and gossip closed, forming scars that served not as marks of shame, but as emblems of survival and growth. Rebecca found herself returning to her roots, seeking comfort in the routines of faith and family. She devoted extra hours to choir practice, hoping her voice could still reach hearts, despite everything that had happened. Each note was a plea for redemption, a prayer woven into melody. Though some church members remained distant, others welcomed her back with open arms, proof that forgiveness could bloom even after the harshest winters. Slowly, Rebecca began to reclaim spaces that once felt hostile. In these moments, she discovered strength in vulnerability, realizing that sharing her pain allowed for genuine connection. Her music became a lifeline, carrying her through storms of doubt and fear. One evening, her father called a family meeting. Pastor James set aside his role as community leader and spoke purely as a father. "We are not defined by our mistakes, but by how we rise after them," he began, voice trembling with emotion. He apologized for his silence, admitting his struggle to balance disappointment and compassion. Rebecca's mother, tears shining in her eyes, reached out to hold her daughter's hand. The family shared honest words, anger, regret, hope. Walls that had separated them began to crumble. Rebecca realized that healing would not come with a single conversation, but rather through ongoing efforts, mutual support, and a collective willingness to forgive. Encouraged by home's newfound warmth, Rebecca took small steps toward rebuilding friendships. She texted old classmates, returned invitations she once ignored, and attended community events with cautious optimism. Some friends were eager to reconnect, remembering the good times before scandal eclipsed their memories. Others remained distant, unwilling to revisit past wounds. Rebecca respected their choices but cherished each gesture of kindness. Samuel remained her steadfast confidant, always ready with a joke or quiet words of wisdom. Together they rebuilt trust, reminding Rebecca that true friendship survives even the wildest tempests. Through these reconnections, she gained faith not only in her peers, but in herself. Weeks gave way to months, and the viral video slowly faded from daily conversation. New scandals occupied neighborhood gossip, and Rebecca finally felt the weight on her chest lifting. She found she could laugh again freely, without fear that every gesture would be misinterpreted or judged. She wore her red dress once more, not to rebel, but to reclaim her own narrative. Rebecca's confidence grew. She celebrated small victories, learned to forgive, and chose joy over regret. Lessons bloom. In those moments of self-acceptance, she realized survival was only the beginning. True strength lay in transforming pain into purpose. Her scars became symbols, not of shame, but of triumph. Yet the journey was not without challenge. David continued to send messages from new numbers. Rebecca stood firm, no longer afraid. She learned to trust her instincts, setting boundaries that protected her peace. Jessica worked to repair their friendship, acknowledging the hurt she had caused and promising change. Their bond, tested by fire, grew more honest and resilient, even if tinged with caution. And through all this, Rebecca discovered a deep well of empathy. She offered help to others facing public disgrace, reaching out to those whose secrets spilled into the spotlight. Her story became a beacon for those struggling under the weight of judgment. As months passed, Rebecca's sense of self deepened. She joined a youth support group at her church, sharing her story with others who'd stumbled or been misunderstood. Her honesty became a source of strength, not just for herself, but for the group. The other youth found in her a relatable mentor, someone who would listen, encourage, and guide without judgment. Rebecca realized healing wasn't only personal. It grew when shared. Helping others process their own mistakes and rebuild their confidence gave new meaning to her pain. She found joy in compassion, her heart opening wider than ever before. The scandal that once threatened to define her now shaped her purpose. Inside her family, Rebecca saw slow, steady progress. Her mother's soft touch and her father's gentle questions replaced old tension. Pastor James spoke openly in church about forgiveness, sometimes referencing a mistake close to home, never naming Rebecca, but always sending her a supportive glance. The congregation took notice. Whispered gossip shifted to curiosity, then admiration. People understood that leaders were human too, susceptible to their own struggles and needing grace. The church, once a place of silent judgment and whispered condemnation, slowly transformed into a community of second chances. Rebecca's courage helped change not only her own fate, but the spirit of her church. School life improved too, though never returned to its old simplicity. Rebecca excelled academically, channeling her focus into top grades and passionate debate. Teachers praised her perseverance. Classmates who once mocked now sought her insight for assignments and projects. Jessica, chastened and matured, found new respect for privacy and trust. She supported Rebecca quietly, celebrating her wins and giving space when needed. Even David eventually faded into a distant memory. His power over Rebecca lost to her newfound assertiveness. Samuel remained her anchor, their friendship growing into something deeper, perhaps love seated in hardship. With each passing day, Rebecca felt more like herself, only stronger. The anniversary of the Night in Red arrived, not with dread, but as a marker of growth. Rebecca gathered her closest friends and family, hosting a small, laughter-filled dinner. She wore her infamous dress again, this time with pride and joy, a symbol not of recklessness, but of resilience. Stories were shared, pain, but also healing, testimonies of survival and change. Her father raised a glass, saluting his daughter's bravery. Her mother wept tears of happiness. Even Jessica, always dramatic, toasted to friendship that could outlast even viral storms. The evening hummed with warmth, affirmation, and love, sealing a chapter marked not by scandal, but by a united recovery. In the quiet after everyone had left, Rebecca stood at her window, staring into the city's night lights. She thought of all she'd lost, the innocence, easy confidence, simple relationships, and what she'd gained instead. She was no longer just the pastor's daughter or the slay queen who went viral, but a woman forged by trials, anchored by faith and community. The pain hadn't vanished, but it had transformed into wisdom and empathy. Rebecca understood now that mistakes do not have to become life sentences. Redemption is possible for anyone willing to face their truth, to seek forgiveness, and to share their story. With this clarity, Rebecca smiled, ready for whatever came next. That night, Rebecca finally felt at peace. She tucked the red dress carefully into her closet, not hidden away with shame, but displayed alongside her favorite clothes, a testament to everything she had survived. With her parents' quiet voices drifting down the hall, and her phone buzzing with supportive messages, she allowed herself a deep, restful sleep. Dreams came, not of scandal or fear, but of future plans, visions of singing before crowds, and of families healed. Rebecca realized that this chapter was only the beginning, and that scars could be sources of pride. Over the next year, Rebecca found new opportunities. Her involvement with the church's youth group expanded. She launched workshops on digital safety and resilience, empowering other young women to protect themselves online. Her story, once ammunition for mockery, now served as a warning and a path to healing. Invitations to speak arrived from other churches and schools, and her confidence flourished with each event. Her parents, now her biggest fans, watched with pride as Rebecca claimed her space as a leader and advocate. Even those who once doubted her learned to respect her growth. Through it all, Rebecca's bond with Samuel deepened into a quiet romance. They shared afternoons of study, evenings filled with laughter, and gentle walks under Lagos's starry skies. With Samuel, Rebecca found acceptance and trust, a love untouched by past mistakes, rooted in the lessons they shared. Lessons bloom. Jessica remained an important friend. Their forgiveness-tested friendship now strengthened by mutual respect and honesty. The small circle Rebecca built became her sanctuary, grounding her in love through new storms and unexpected joys. One Sunday, as she sang her favorite hymn as lead soloist, Rebecca caught the eye of a new girl at church. Alone, clearly anxious, and whispering apologies to the usher. After service, Rebecca introduced herself, offering a smile and a seat at the youth meeting. She recognized the fear and shame she saw in the newcomer's eyes. Gently, she shared her own journey, quietly demonstrating that past mistakes could be stepping stones to grace. The new girl's smile blossomed, and for Rebecca, the moment sealed the gift of her hard-won empathy. Years later, Rebecca looked back with gratitude. The past was still there, woven into the fabric of who she had become. But its shadows no longer haunted her every move. Instead, she saw a resilient woman who had turned pain into purpose and scandal into service. Her story, shared on stages, in church pews, and whispered to scared girls, continued to spark hope wherever it traveled. And as Rebecca stood beneath the evening sky, wrapped in the loving embrace of her family and friends, she finally understood: redemption is always possible, and grace will always have the final word.